Yeah. What's up, Eagles Nation? Welcome to, well, obviously the off season. It's been the off season, I know, for us for a few weeks, but 4-11-1, the final record. I know I haven't made a video for this series in a few weeks. I just didn't see what the point was to go through those last weeks and try to break things down because there really wasn't much of a point as this team was done. And the fact, look, you know, the wonderful Tankapalooza game that we had to watch at the end against the football team. And honestly, I had no problems with what they did. I mean, I would have done it if you're trying to get a better draft pick. You do what you got to do. Other teams have done it. You know, people keep making out like the Eagles were the only team to do it. Other teams have done it in the past. Now, the difference was those games weren't on primetime television, so it kind of got lost in translation. But it is what it is. As we all know by now, the Eagles parted ways with Doug Pederson. Jim Schwartz retired beforehand. You kind of saw the writing on the wall. So there'll be a new coaching staff in place. I would imagine that barring a surprise trade, Carson Wentz is going to be here. They're not going to just release him. It's too big a cap hit on a team that has cap issues. Howie Roseman's still here. I mean, Howie must have pictures or something. He must know something because if you go through, I think I heard 4 coaches in his tenure here, and he's still here. I mean, listen, you go through coaches because the team during that time just isn't good enough. So you have to change coaches, but the GM gets to stay there. Part of the reason why the team is where they are right now, maybe a good part of the reason is the decision-making by the GM, by Howie, right? I mean, since he got out of the broom closet, he had one good season. Now, listen, it was a hell of an offseason, and he did have some help there by Joe Douglas and other powers that be at the time. They made the right moves, right, in free agency. They brought in the right players, veterans who won in the past. Just the right mixture of those type of players to go with the team they already had in place. And everything worked well, but it's not going to happen every single season, but you still have to prove yourself. Now, obviously, there's some conflicting reports coming out that part of those draft picks were Jeffrey Lurie, that he really wanted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside instead of D.K. Metcalf. But Jalen Reagor was all on Howie over Justin Jefferson. And we'll get back to that. Let's first start with the season, okay? Let's first start with this miserable season that we had to go through, okay? Bottom line is your record is what you are what your record says you are, the old Bill Parcells saying, right? Just not good enough. 4-11-1 was the final record. And I apologize. I think I gave them an extra win in one of my videos. That's how you can tell just how ridiculous of a season this was. 4-11-1. And you can't blame the COVID because other teams went through COVID. Every team went through COVID. The same protocols that the Eagles had to go through with the lack of the offseason, no preseason, everything like that, other teams have gone through. And look, I mean, you even expanded the playoffs by two teams. And this team was still that bad. And it's just not good enough. Now, listen, do I think it's 100% fair that they fired Doug Pederson, the only coach to ever win a Super Bowl in franchise history? Most of his tenure here was positive. I mean, positive results with winning seasons, playoff appearances, 3 straight years prior to this year. Again, the big caveat, right? The Super Bowl championship a couple of years ago, Super Bowl 52. You know, he did a lot good here, and to his credit, I think he's going to find a job, and do well wherever he goes. I mean, there's been a lot of conflicting reports coming out that Doug wasn't able to, over the past few years, he wasn't able to get his guys in as assistant coaches or keep his guys in as assistant coaches. And obviously, when he first came here, they brought in Frank Reich and DiFilippo, and everything just gelled, everything just worked. But like I said many a time, when you have success, teams pull from those coaches, right? You can't always keep those guys, but you have to replenish them. And apparently there was, again, who knows? I don't work for the team. I don't have that inside access. I'm not a reporter, who gets that inside access. So as a fan, just hearing stuff on sports talk radio, it is what it is. And you hear these like conflicting reports of how much say Doug had to get his coaches or keep his coaches in place, right? How much power did he really have ultimately? Some of that, came from Jeffrey Lurie. Some of it came from Howie Roseman. So Doug really wasn't given full control. I think it's a mistake. I mean, when you have a head coach who proved himself in the first few years of being here, you got to let him do what he has to do. I mean, you see a lot of teams that have success, the ultimate success, and they're always successful, right? Most of those franchises, I would say, the head coach makes the decisions, right, on who he wants on his staff, and also with player personnel. Right now, the GM does make decisions, and in some cases, the head coach is the GM, right? But you still have coherency with those teams. We've seen some of these teams kind of build themselves up to where they are now, and they're going to be able to stay on top because they have that ability. And it's like it's a shame because it's like some franchises can't handle success, and obviously the Eagles were a franchise that could not handle that success. Unfortunately, as an Eagles fan, all we said for years and years and years was we want that Super Bowl, right? We want that Lombardi. We want that parade. We want that championship. And we finally got it, and the team didn't know how to handle it, right? They got a little too power happy afterwards, right? The top of the chain with Lurie and Howie Roseman. At least that's how it appears. Not allowing Doug to do what he has to do, keep a staff in place or get other guys in place that may be better than what he had. Player personnel. And again, the GM is the one that has to write the check, that has to take care of all the contracts. The owner writes the checks, right? But you have, it's like Howie he's just not good with the player personnel. When he's on his own, when he doesn't have that kind of help, that second in command to him, he just doesn't know what to do. And it's obvious. Look at these drafts. For the most part, they've missed on all these players. And the jury's still out on some of the guys they drafted last season. But, I mean, the tape's the tape. I mean, you see what Jalen Reagor is compared to what Justin Jefferson is. Now, does Jefferson put up the numbers here they did in Minnesota this year? Probably not. But it will be better numbers than what we got from Jalen Reagor. I mean, DK Metcalf, is he doing exactly with the Eagles what he's doing in Seattle? Probably not. But I guarantee you his numbers are better than Arcega-Whiteside, and that might not be saying much. But he's probably, a fringe Pro Bowl type of wide receiver with the Eagles. And same with Justin Jefferson. Listen, Justin Jefferson balled out at LSU. And I'm not, look, there are plenty of great players that have come from smaller schools, and across the board, right? But you knew watching this guy, right? Same as watching Smith in Alabama, right? You knew watching this guy at LSU winning a national championship, a big part of that team, that offensive attack that won the national championship for LSU a season ago, going through the playoffs, playing in a conference in the SEC they actually play defense in, okay? Beating really good corners week after week. And again, doing it in the playoffs, doing it in the national championship game. You knew the guy was going to be legit, right, against Clemson. You knew the guy was going to be legit. Everybody knew that. Now, was he a top 5 pick? No. But he was there when the Eagles had a chance to draft him, and instead of drafting him, they're like, oh, we're going to get Reagor, because he's a receiver, but he also returns punts. And by the way, they didn't really use him as a punt returner this year. Oh, I'm sorry. He had a punt return for a touchdown against Green Bay, and he never tried to catch a punt the rest of the season. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. We got to watch Ward back there, letting balls go over his head and getting down inside the 10. I'm just saying. All due respect to Ward, but come on, man. You had a home run hitter and you're not using him as a punt returner. That's one of the reasons why you drafted him. And another thing, you don't draft a receiver that early just because he can be a punt returner. You draft him to be a wide receiver on your team. It's a bonus if he can return punts. That's a bonus. You don't use a first-round pick on a wide receiver because he's a punt returner. You use a first-round pick on a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson. And all the talk was, right, well, Rager's fast. That's why we got him. And then I hear these reports that Justin Jefferson ran a faster 40 time in the combine than Rager. I guess he's fast too. And he proved it on the biggest stage, playing for a national championship team in LSU. Sometimes you just got to do what's right. And sometimes, look, the eye test, sometimes, look, the guy is there, you draft him. And Howie just doesn't seem to do it. Howie takes this guy because, well, everyone's expecting I'm going to get this guy, so I'm going to get that guy instead. And you can't draft that way. That's pathetic. That's why this team keeps missing on players. We're going to take a chance. It should be that guy. He's good. We know he's good. Look what he did in college. Oh, we're going to get this guy. Howie's never been one to assess wide receivers, though. Never. All these years. And that's just a couple picks. We're not even talking about some of these other positions that they failed to draft in the draft. We're not talking about a team that did not understand the concept of linebackers for years, or safeties, or secondary cornerbacks, drafting better players than what they were drafting. Too many misses at these positions. If it's a couple, okay, but you're missing just about every time. Okay, you sprinkle in a couple good players here and there, and then they misuse them when they play. Miles Sanders should be getting more carries than he does. A home run hitter on offense, you're not using them enough. There's enough blame to go around. There's enough blame to go around, obviously, at the very top with Jeffrey Lurie and with Howie Roseman and the powers that be in the front office. There's enough blame to go around with the coaching staff. And there's certainly enough blame to go with the players. Listen, at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, I believe Carson Wentz is probably going to still be back here next season. Probably as a starting quarterback with a new head coach and a new offensive system. But obviously, he's not without blame. Here's the thing I feel about Carson Wentz, and I was a big Wentz wagon guy. I believe in this guy, and in some ways I still want to, because I don't know what other options I have. If it's going to be Jalen Hurts, I don't know. It's a small sample size, and he made some mistakes too. And he's a rookie, so I'm not going to harp on him too much. The guy's got to hold on to that football, particularly if you're going to be a scrambling quarterback. You got to hang on to the ball. But anyhow. Carson Wentz, okay, so you go into this, and the Eagles shouldn't have drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. I mean, come on, that's not a position of need at that pick. They needed to draft another position that they had of need, and there were plenty of positions they had of need other than quarterback in the second round. But okay, you draft Jalen Hurts. So Carson Wentz is sitting there, and it basically ruined his season. Now listen, you're going into your fifth season as a starter. I understand there's been injuries, that some of his seasons have ended early, prematurely because of injuries. The playoff game against Seattle, he gets cheap hit by Clowney, and that ended it, right? I get that. I understand. But you're going into your fifth season as the starting quarterback of this franchise. And you mean to tell me that by them drafting a guy in the second round, it's going to derail your whole season and possibly your whole career? You have to have more mental fortitude than that. You're a starting quarterback in the NFL. Listen, guys get drafted eventually. Now, yeah, the Eagles drafted a guy maybe a little too early, but still. I look at that guy in green, and I don't want to compare Carson Wentz to Aaron Rodgers. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just using him as an example for intentional fortitude, right? The Packers used a first-round pick on a quarterback this offseason in Love. And Aaron Rodgers goes out and has one of his best seasons in his career. And more than likely, he'll be the league MVP when all is said and done. Do you think it bothered him Or that got to him that they drafted Love and it just ruined his season? No. He went out and said, you know what? Okay, you drafted this guy. He's going to have to take it from me. And this is why he won't take it from me, at least for another how many years. He goes out, he balls out. If the Seahawks drafted a guy, Russell Wilson's going to ball out. I mean, Brady freaking kicked Garoppolo out of New England. You got to be mentally strong. And I know that some of the examples I gave are just all-time greats, but I mean, you look around the board. If the Texans are drafting a quarterback, you think Watson's going to crawl up into a ball? Look at all the stuff they did with Watson over the years. They get rid of his best receiver, and he balls out this year, over 3,000 yards passing, with virtually no one to throw the ball to. And yeah, I would love the Eagles to trade for him. That guy's a winner. I knew he was a winner at Clemson. He's a winner in this league. I just think he needs to be on another team. And I would love it if they got him. Because that guy has the onions. That guy has it up here. I liked him at Clemson. I saw him win a national championship on the last play against Alabama. That guy has it up here. That's the type of guy I want as my quarterback. And maybe Hurts does too. I don't know. I don't know enough about Jalen Hurts. I know he overcome some things in college. He moved on to Oklahoma, had a good year. Okay, won national championship at Alabama before that. Obviously, he's mentally strong. But it's such a small sample size with Jalen Hurts so far, you know? Did he do some good things? Did he flash? Yeah. But he made mistakes, and he's a rookie. And this video really isn't about Jalen Hurts. Although of the two, who do I think has a better chance of being traded? It's probably Jalen Hurts. I don't know if those two can coexist. Certainly not Wentz. I mean, Wentz, you think it's bad now, it'll just keep getting worse. Unless the next coach comes in and gets to him and can change what obviously this previous regime couldn't. I mean, Carson was playing awful. He looked worse than a rookie out there. Are you kidding me? All those interceptions, and that was never his MO coming into the season. He wasn't a big interception machine. Well, he was this season. I mean, he flashed here and there, but my God. I mean, look, all these things, listen, I mean, it should build you up. You should be in one of those, I'm going to show you mode. It should have been, this season really for him, if he had it up here, should have been one of those, I'm going to have my best season. I'm going to show all of them because he wasn't voted for the top 100, right, on NFL Network this offseason. And then the Eagles go off and draft Jalen Hurts in the second round. I mean, a guy with bigger cojones comes into this season and I'm going to, I'm going to show all of them. I don't know. I mean, are we ever going to have the 2017 Carson Wentz again? I don't know. And if he does, maybe it's on another team. Maybe it's on a Colts or a 49ers or some other team. I don't know if it will ever be here. There's some guys that just don't belong in Philly, in this type of environment, with this type of pressure. And maybe Carson's just one of those. I don't know the guy. I'm just speaking as a fan, a guy who watches him on the field. But just his mannerisms, the way he handles news conferences, I mean, the play certainly on the field, I just don't think he can handle this environment. And I don't think it's a knock on the guy because I just think there are certain people who can't handle being in big type of, markets like Philly with this type of fan base, with the pressure. I mean, certainly, listen, he had to watch another guy win the Super Bowl, his backup win a Super Bowl, and be the Super Bowl MVP in that game. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough thing, and everyone's saying you can't do this and you can't do that, and you get hurt and this and that. Listen, last season, I was impressed. And say what you want about who they finished off against, but the guy won 4 straight games, all must-wins. He threw for over 4,000 yards without a 500-yard receiver. Balled out, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception going into that playoff game. It's a shame that the Clowney hit happened, because who knows how that season could have ended if not for that. The man balled out. We've seen this in him. In 2017, he would have been the league MVP if he doesn't go down in L.A. against the Rams. Right? So we've seen moments. It just hasn't been enough. And it's like any time something happens, right? That he gets tested a bit. He just crumbles. He falls apart. Starting off the season, following the Super Bowl, came in week 3 against the Colts, right? Didn't play overly well when he was in there for a bit. I mean, there was talk that they should just, right? And then he got hurt. Foles comes back, and, you know, the rest is history on that season. And then when Foles was traded to the Jaguars and Wentz was the guy, started off slow that season. And there was a lot of question marks on whether he should be the quarterback. And he balled out after that. Started going on a run. And this season was just a disaster. And we get back to Howie Roseman and decision-making. Listen, it's not just the drafts. Look at the contracts he's given. And I understand it's tough after you win a Super Bowl. But my God, you're giving these contracts to older players. And it is a cold business. Sports as a whole is a cold business. And like I said again about teams that know how to handle success and teams that don't, the Patriots, and they're just one of these once-in-a-lifetime franchises, right? Because what they have done in the salary cap era is just almost unprecedented, right? The amount of success that they had. But they knew when it was time to get rid of players. I mean, coming off championships, they got rid of players because they knew. They replenished. They lost coaches on the coaching staff. They replenished. But Belichick was given full power. You know, you didn't have meddling guys ahead of him. Kraft, you know, kind of sat back. You know, and allowed Belichick to do what he had to do to keep the team afloat. And they had just it was their way. And it seems like what we have here, from what I'm hearing, is Jeffrey Lurie's kind of turning into a Jerry Jones. A little too meddling. Shouldn't be. Hasn't really worked in Dallas for many years. Maybe it started to, making all those trades, getting those draft picks and drafting well that they did back in the 90s, getting the triplets there and everything and having all that success. But you look at Jerry Jones now, it's a joke. Now, other guys have started to take over in the drafts for him. He doesn't have as much say as he used to. And they've actually drafted some decent players. But if Jeffrey Lurie's doing the same kind of thing here, that can't happen. Because that's just not going to work. You know, you're drafting Arcega-Whiteside instead of DK Metcalf. That's just not going to work. And the same for Howie. A GM should have some say, but not total say in these drafts. It's got to be the coaches. Look, they're the ones that have to coach these guys. And get the best out of these players to make them NFL players. You can't give me that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are going to make all the picks. What good's that? Oh, because they're scouting games in the Pac-12. You got to let the decisions in those regards made by better people that should be making those decisions. The scouts, the coaches, those are the people who should be making these decisions. The GM just has to make the contracts. The owner has to sign the checks. And there's more involved that they do. I get that on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to drafting these players, let the experts handle it. Don't worry about it. Because it's obvious Howie doesn't know enough. Look at all the players they missed on. Yeah, like I said, they sprinkle in a few here and there. But it's just, for the most part, it's overall bad. And you can't sustain winning that way. Because you can't win just by bringing in free agents all the time. It messes up your cap. And then you give bad contracts to guys that don't fit the system. That's another problem. This team can't seem to get guys that fit the system. Now, I don't know what their system is. Okay? But, I mean, I've seen guys that they have brought here that were really good on other, I mean, Pro Bowl talent on other teams come here and you never hear of them. And then guys that leave here go on and have success elsewhere. Guys who stunk here go on other teams and be like fringe Pro Bowl players for their new teams. Aguilar learned how to catch in Las Vegas for some reason. He couldn't do it here the last few seasons. He goes there, he's a player again. Coaching. That's what it is. At the end of the day, the coaching just wasn't good enough. At the end of the day. Now, do I think it's all right just to make Doug Pederson the scapegoat? No. I think Howie Roseman should have been gone years ago. I really do. I don't understand what the fascination with Howie Roseman is. And in my mind, until he's gone, it's going to be the same. Because they're giving him way too much power. Unless they get a coach in here and he's going to be the guy. He's going to make the decisions. Now, I'm not saying that coach has to be the GM. We've been through that in the past with Chip Kelly, and that didn't work overly well. But the coach has to have the say in who he's going to get on his staff. Can't come from Howie. Can't come from Jeffrey. Has to be that coach that makes the decision, whoever they get. They're going to be the one drafting. They're going to be the one assessing player personnel with a larger role in doing that than obviously Doug Pederson had in the previous regime. And guess what? Since it failed at the end, how you need to go back in the broom closet during the drafts. All right, you can assess some players in free agency, work the contracts, Jeffrey can sign the check, but that's it. That's your involvement. Because you're not good at player assessing. You're just not. And figuring out what players to re-sign, obviously he's not. Come on, man. Look at these players that they let Jason Peters walk all over him. Jason Peters has been done for years. Much respect to the man. Future Hall of Famer. He'll be an Eagles Hall of Famer. His number might be retired at the end of the day. But Jason Peters should have been gone a couple years ago. Giving that extra extending Alshon Jeffrey. Again, older players. It doesn't work. Unless you're just one of those generational talents, like an Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, those type of players. Aaron Donald, at different positions. They're going to be great. Too much power, and it doesn't work on those other teams. When the owner and the GM has too much power, those other teams, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, that's where we got. It's a shame. Listen, when you talk about what direction this team should go in now, who should they bring in as a head coach? And I have the feeling they're going to look at an offensive head coach, right? You have the quarterback situation that you have. You have some other young players on offense that you want to grow, what have you. And Jeffrey Lurie loves offense. Every coach that he's brought in besides Ray Rhodes, right, was an offensive-minded coach. Andy Reid was an offensive-minded coach. Chip Kelly was an offensive-minded coach. Doug Pederson was an offensive-minded coach. And I was thinking about this yesterday after Doug was fired. I don't think the Eagles have been horrendous in those years, okay? Obviously, under Andy Reid, the Eagles had some really good years. Okay, under Andy Reid, the Eagles went to 5 conference title games. They went to 1 Super Bowl, lost to the Patriots, Super Bowl 39. But that was what they did under Andy Reid. Chip Kelly, we know nothing, all right? Doug Pederson comes in. The Eagles went to 1 conference title game and won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 52 against the Patriots. So in that time, and you're looking at roughly a 30-year span, right? From Andy Reid to Doug Pederson, the end of that regime. Roughly 30 years and 3 years with Chip Kelly. 3 offensive-minded coaches. This team has been to 6 conference title games and 2 Super Bowls and winning the 1 Super Bowl. Thankfully, winning the 1 Super Bowl. That's just not good enough in my opinion. That just isn't. I almost feel like it's time to change. It's time to flip that switch. Instead of looking at an offensive-minded coach, what about a defensive-minded coach? And there's some good ones out there to take. What about looking at that? And on the caveat of that coach has got to get a really good offensive coordinator. Now, who is that? I don't know. But that's for that coach. They have to have a damn good offensive coordinator. Maybe it's Deuce. I don't know. But that coach has got to find that guy, a la how Andy Reid found Jim Johnson those many years ago to be his defensive coordinator. It has to work hand in hand. If you're a defensive-minded coach, you have to have a really good offensive coordinator. If you're an offensive-minded coach, you better damn well have a good defensive coordinator, right? Now, obviously, Chip Kelly never did. And Jim Schwartz, I was never a big fan of. They had success, they won, but my goodness, Tom Brady had his best Super Bowl statistically in his career in that Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 52. It wasn't because of Jim Schwartz that the Eagles won that Super Bowl, right? Now, Brandon Graham made the greatest strip sack in team history in that Super Bowl, and the defense made the one play that they had to make. But for the most part, it was just too vanilla. Too vanilla. The sticks defense on third and longs, or just playing off coverage all the time. The only thing that mattered to them was the defensive line. You know, you don't have any linebackers. Safeties were okay. They had Malcolm there for a while. But honestly, older safeties for the most part. The cornerbacks were never good enough. Just kind of skated by, right? Just not good enough. I did not like the scheme. I don't think you can name many Eagle fans that did like Jim Schwartz's scheme over the years, for as much as we complained about it, right? But listen, they had success. They won a Super Bowl. Not for nothing, right? Doug, as a head coach, the first year he goes to the playoffs, he wins a Super Bowl, right? But again, at the end of the day, just wasn't a good enough defensive coordinator with him. And the schemes there just weren't good enough. And it has to go hand in hand, doesn't it? I mean, I don't think Kansas City is this incredible lockdown defense, but they're just good enough, right, to go that they complement that offense. Everything that Kansas City does offensively, that defense at least complements it, right? Enough. So it works. And you have these other teams like Baltimore and such, right? They're really good defenses to go with a pretty good offense. I wouldn't put Baltimore's offense up there as one of the greatest in the world, right? Lamar Jackson still has to learn to position a little more, be a little better of a passer, right? But they do enough, and he's exciting enough. He makes enough plays on his own, right? But that defense is, look, they've had some issues, but for the most part, it's a lockdown defense. It's a really good defense they put together. They drafted one. That's having pieces in place that know how to do it. Steelers have done it for years. Now, they have a defensive-minded coach in Tomlin who's taking some heat today. I get it, after that pathetic loss to the Browns and the way that season ended for the Steelers when they were 11-0 and how it ended. But for the most part, that franchise has had success with a defensive-minded coach. Before that, they had Cowher. Really good. I mean, for the most part, the defenses were pretty good for a lot of those years. And you look at the job, obviously, I mean, the biggest, right, known commodity is what Belichick's done in New England for all those years, right? So you can win with a defensive-minded head coach. You can have success with a defensive-minded head coach, and it's been a long time. Like I said, roughly 30 years or whatever it was since Ray Rhodes was here that the Eagles had a defensive-minded head coach. It didn't work overly well with Ray, but look, I mean, that team just wasn't good enough at the end of the day. They still had some pretty good defensive players that they drafted, and those players came over for Jim Johnson to really get them to get the most out of their talents, right? You look at guys like Brian Dawkins and Jeremiah Trotter, Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent when he was brought in as a free agent from Miami. I mean, look at the job that they did. You have to have the talent, but you have to have the coaches and staff in place, rather, to grow that talent, to get the most of that talent. And I do think that there's players on this defense that could have more talent there. They just need to be coached better. I don't think that's a total loss. I think there are players in here that, you know, maybe the fans don't know as much. Maybe younger players that need to have better coaching and staff in place, rather. The same for the offense. Can Carson Wentz be corrected? Sure. We've seen quarterbacks get corrected. Maybe they go to other teams and get corrected, but it's all about coaching. At the end of the day, regardless of what it is, it's about coaching. And this team has got to get better at coaching. Which is, again, why I bring up a defensive-minded head coach. I, for one, wouldn't mind a defensive-minded head coach to come here. Because like I said, I gave you the numbers again. This is about roughly 30 years. 6 of those 30 years, give or take, ended in a conference title appearance. 2 of those years ended in a Super Bowl. 1 of those years ended in a championship. That's 1 championship in and we're all, thank God, right? But 1 championship in over 30 years. Now, there are other franchises that could wish they had that, right? I get it. Browns fans, Bills fans, Lions fans, Jaguars, Panthers, Titans, what have you, right? I get it. And as we all know, it's a hard damn thing to win. Even though some franchises make it look easy, okay? But it's just not good enough. To me, that's not good enough. I want more success. I want more prolonged success than that. And I know it's an offensive league, and it's all about the quarterback numbers and running backs and everything. And look, most of the MVPs is going to be an offensive player. Going to be an offensive player again this year, more than likely the boogeyman in Green Bay, right? Aaron Rodgers. I get it. It's an offensive league. It's sexy in the NFL, right? No, all right. You make a defensive stand. What do people want to see? A goal line stand or an 80-yard touchdown bomb, right? What's more exciting? But because we've been on this hamster wheel for so long with these offensive-minded coaches, and for the most part, I think it worked with Andy Reid. I don't think he was terrible. I think it ended not so good with him. It just got a little too long, I think, his stay here. They had a lot of success. Chip Kelly was a disaster at the end. And Doug Pederson, it didn't end well with him. Now, again, maybe if you give him an extra couple of years with him being more in charge of who he wants in the coaching staff, maybe it could have gotten better. I don't know. I'm not in the room. I'm just some Yahoo here on YouTube making these videos. But I know from what I see, and I know from what I see other teams do, because I watch other games. I don't have the blinders, these green blinders on, that I just focus on the Eagles. I watch the league. So I know how some of these teams work, and I know what works for some of these organizations. And there's been failure at the same time. Look, there's been some really good defensive coordinators that go on to be head coaches, and it fails. I mean, Dan Quinn, right now, back to a good position for him, defensive coordinator, unfortunately, in Dallas, but that was a good hire for them because he's a better defensive coordinator than he is as a head coach. Obviously, the Lions made a mistake by getting Patricia. That was a disaster. Maybe he just didn't have the right coaching staff with him. But it was a disaster. So I'm not saying every time you get a defensive-minded coach it's going to work. It won't. There's a chance that it doesn't, but there's a chance that getting an offensive-minded coach isn't going to work either. See Chip Kelly. There's been other examples of that too. Gase, right, goes to be this quarterback whisperer, right? He goes to the Jets. He's awful, and he could have been here. Thankfully, the Eagles didn't get him. They got Pederson at the time. Sometimes it's lucky when something doesn't work out, right? When there's a guy that you have in mind, the hot name, and he doesn't go to the team, and you get someone else who's like, well, why are they getting this guy? And then, well, it worked out, right? There was a lot of Eagle fans that, well, who's this Andy Reid? Why are they getting this guy? He was the quarterback coach on Green Bay. All right, so they had success. It was Andy Reid. And then they go on to have some of the most success they had in franchise history. They didn't win a Super Bowl, but I mean, prolonged period of success. Yeah, it was there. Didn't end well, as we all remember. But the guy put a hell of a staff around him. That's the one thing Andy Reid always knew how to do, and he's doing it in Kansas City now, isn't he? Putting guys around him. As assistant coaches, he's always been good at that, and it's no surprise he's doing it in Kansas City. And he's always had an eye for that offensive talent, going back to his Eagle days. Obviously Chip Kelly had success in college, didn't transfer to the NFL. Doug Pederson, when he came along, again another quarterback coach, right, with Kansas City with Andy Reid, former starter here with the Eagles for a season, right? For most of that season, anyhow, when Donovan was a rookie. Who was this guy? Well, what's his credentials to be a head coach? What are they doing getting him? They could have had XYZ. Why did they get Pederson? And then in his second year, he wins a Super Bowl. Sometimes it's the move that isn't made that ends up being the best. It's tough. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. Because you're really under fire, right? You make this decision, it's either going to work or you're going to have egg all over your face. Even though for some reason Howie's able to survive through 4 coaches. Or how many coaches it's been since he's been here, right? A few coaches at least. Since he's been with the franchise. It's difficult, man. It's a, you never want to see seasons like this as a fan, right? Particularly coming off just a few years ago having the ultimate success. And then where it became from then. I mean, they went backwards since that, right? They lucked into the playoff win in Chicago with the double doink. It was the only playoff game they won since Super Bowl 52. And it happened because a former Eagle, Cody Parkey, double doinked it off the crossbar, and that was it. Right? Then, of course, we remember the game in New Orleans where the ball goes through Alshon Jeffrey's hand at the end, and there goes that one. All right, Lattimore intercepted it. And, of course, the Seattle game last season, and Wentz getting knocked out, and, of course, this year not making the playoffs at all. This team has gone backwards since winning that Super Bowl. And like I said, for some franchises, it's just they don't know how to handle success. They don't know how to handle success. And the shame of it is we've had to go through 2 of them now. The Phillies won in 2008. What happened after that? Now, they went back in 2009, lost to the Yankees. And I always say if Cole Hamels was Cole Hamels, they would have won that series. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. But after that, and look, there was some unfortunate events that took place. A 1-0 loss to the Cardinals in the playoffs with Roy Halladay dealing on the mound, and yeah, I mean things. But they never could get back to that title, and then it just went bad, and they had to move on from Charlie Manuel, and they really haven't made any inroads since. We'll see what they do going forward, but it's been a while since the last time even they were in the playoffs. And now the Eagles, right, finally win a Super Bowl. Oh, thank God, right? It's been mostly nothing but pain ever since. Now, maybe some fans will say, oh, I'll take it. I'll take 20 years of not because I got the title right before the Super Bowl. How many fans are, well, okay, if you're going to win a title and then you have to go through 10 losing, seasons afterwards, would you take it? And before the Super Bowl, fans are like, oh, yeah, sure, let's do it. And now, but here we are. People didn't enjoy that 4-11-1 season. People didn't enjoy losing to Seattle or losing to New Orleans in the playoffs those years before. Right? Because you get a taste. You're there. You were at the top of the mountain. You know what it is. You finally know what it is. All the joy that was there. And now you have to deal with this. And just the unfortunate thing is you have a organization that just a few years ago everyone's toasting, and now it's like they're just lost. Rudderless ship. Can it be fixed? Yes, it can. But they're going to have to get the right coaching staff in here, the right talent evaluators. They have to hit on the draft because they're going to be in cap hell now for at least this season. They have to hit on the draft picks. And the young guys on this team, they got to get the most out of that talent. They got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. There's a lot of questions out there that need to be answered. And it might not be all answered in one offseason. In fact, I know for sure it probably won't. This is a few years down the road, fix. And if they don't get the right head coach, it's going to be longer than that. That's the life of an Eagles fan. Even after we win, we can't have fun. we can't have good things. We'll see what the Sixers and Flyers do. But I like I said, there's a lot of bad that has to be fixed. And I don't think Howie Roseman's the guy for the job. I really don't. And unfortunately, he's still here. I don't know what it's going to take for him to get out of here, for Jeffrey Lurie to finally move on from him. It doesn't make any sense to me that you've gone through a few coaches now and yet the GM still stays in place with all the misses in the drafts that he was a part of, the free agents that they brought in that didn't work out, the contracts that were horrible for older players. You can't continue to do that. It's like having a job and continuing to fail and fail and fail. And your boss just keeps patting you on the head saying, oh, no, it's okay. We'll blame that guy. We'll blame him over there. But you're good. You keep making those mistakes. You don't have that. And Howie somehow can get away with it. Like I said, he must know something. He probably accompanies Jeffrey Lurie to those Red Sox games. Right? Them in their box. Listen. I know what type of season we had to go through, and it was horrendous. Is it overly surprising that Pederson's not here anymore? No. See, there you go. The guy has a losing season. He's gone. But Howie. It just doesn't make any bit of sense. It just doesn't. This isn't liquor, but it should be. But no, it's going to be a fascinating offseason. We're going to see. Again, we have to look for a new coach now, coaching staff, new players, the draft. They have the 6th overall pick. I'd love to get Smith. But you think Howie knows how to draft a receiver? I don't know. He'll draft some receiver from, like, Polytech. No one ever heard of. And then the team, just like Minnesota, the team who's behind the Eagles are going to cheer because they get to get Smith, right? Oh, we're going to draft this guy. Like, what? Why, Howie, why? It's a shame. It just, like I said, it's been altogether bad. There's more than enough blame to go with the head, too, with Jeffrey Lurie, for allowing this to keep going, for being a part of it. If it is true that he's the one that wanted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I mean, my God. If that's true, I think Jeffrey just never needs to. Jeffrey, no more picks for you. Watch, J-Jaw goes to another team and has success. Would it surprise me? No. Because players that go to other teams from the Eagles seem to do okay when they're here. And again, that goes back to coaching, right? It always goes back to coaching. Don't let it fool. Now, there's certain players that are just not going to be good no matter where they are. That just is. But a lot of these players that you see playing well elsewhere, and when they're here, they suck. It's because of the coaching, In that case, it might not be on the assessing the talent. It might be on coaching that talent, right? I did love the thing that Jeffrey Lurie said in his speech yesterday about how Howie was, but you see some of those players that were drafted just before us and they're having success. Yeah, maybe you should have traded up a bit, jumped over a few teams to get some of those players. But then again, if those players were here, are they having the same success? Probably not. That's just my feeling. I do think they would be better. I do think this franchise would be much better off right now with DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson than they are with J-Jaw and Rager. Much better. I mean, are they putting up those type of numbers here? No, but they're putting up certainly better numbers, I would hope, than what we've gotten out of those two so far. And the jury might still be out on Rager. Hey, maybe a better coaching staff gets more out of his talent. Maybe next season he's having a big year. You never know. I'm not going to give up on a player after 1 year. Although it is disappointing that they drafted him instead of Jefferson. But it is what it is. No, the Vikings didn't make the playoffs either. So he went out and but he balled out. He balled out with 1,400 whatever yards, beat Randy Moss's record. I mean, my goodness. That guy's a player, and I knew he was a player at LSU. There's just certain players They're playing on a big team in a big conference, winning a national title, balling out against a great defense. You don't think that's going to transfer to the NFL? All right, way to go, Howie. The Viking war room was certainly happy, right? Cheering, doing backflips, scolding it up as much as they were. It's a shame. I mean, hey, I would never say the fans should always draft, but it's a shame that, the Eagle fans couldn't just make those 2 picks. DK Metcalf and Jefferson, because the fans would have picked those two. The, the fans would have definitely picked those two, but it is what it is. They don't listen to us. They want our money for the merchandise and the ticket sales, but they don't listen to us, who we want to get in the draft. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? How many Eagle fans wanted Ricky Williams over Donovan McNabb those many years ago? Maybe that wouldn't have worked out. And Ricky did have a decent career, but I mean, the Eagles needed a quarterback back then, and they got a pretty good one in McNabb. Didn't win, but yay, I mean, had a lot more success than not, I think, with the franchise. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. That's in the past. We're talking about the future right now, right? We're gonna see. It's tough. It's tough. It had to end this way for Doug. I do hope he goes on to another team and has some success. I think he's a good guy. I do think he's a good coach. I think he's one of those coaches that needs that other staff around him. I don't think he can do it himself. But we saw the best of Doug. We saw the worst of Doug. We kind of saw all of Doug here. If he just wasn't given that opportunity to pick his own staff those past few years, that's a shame. It really is. And you know what? It may have, obviously helped to get where they are right now. If too much power is with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, it's got to stop. And will it stop? I honestly, unfortunately, I don't think it will, because now they're just too in control, and it's not a good thing. It just isn't. And again, this is probably going to be a few years of mediocrity before things get better. In my mind, as long as Howie Roseman's here, I don't know how much better it's going to get, because I think the same mistakes that they made over the past how many years is still going to happen. I don't think that changes. I would hope they would give more power to a new head coach. I would hope they would allow him to do what he has to do with this franchise to turn it around, though a couple-year period it's going to be. But listen, no team stays down forever in the NFL. I mean, teams do, get better. And this division isn't going to be a world-beating division for a number of years. I understand that the football team made the playoffs this year, and they're on the right track, right? With another, talk about Andy Reid tree, right? Ron Rivera, and Ron Strong, of course, for what he's gone through. But they're doing good things, and they have a vision, right? They have a vision for the future. He ain't a quarterback, but they are on the right track. The Giants, I don't believe in Danny Dimes. I don't think he's the difference maker there. But they have a pretty strong defense. Maybe they grow with that. Now they just need to get the quarterback in place, right? Dallas, as much as I hate to admit, Dan Quinn was a good move for them at defensive coordinator. He's going to do some good things. He's going to rebuild that defense there. They have some good pieces. Just need to be coached better, right? He's going to do a better job. They'll get Dak back. Now, will they give him the contract? Who knows? That's going to be the $50 million question, right? But at least there's something there. Now, I don't believe in McCarthy a bit. I think the guy, he was in Green Bay all those years with Aaron Rodgers, and you can only go to one Super Bowl with that guy. And in an era where there's no juggernaut in the NFC, so I question him as a head coach. But again, with the right defensive coordinator, players get healthy, they're going to be better for sure. But there's no juggernaut in this division. There hasn't been a repeat champion in the division for how long, since the Eagles did it years ago. And I think it's still going to be one of those rotational things. I do think that some teams are going to be better. Look, it can't get much worse than this season. This was just... This was just the worst division that you can have. But with that said, teams will get better, and teams in this division will get better, and the Eagles will get better too. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some doing, but they have to hit in the draft. That's where it starts. And as long as Howie's making those picks, I don't know. I don't know. If he's there at 6, I want Smith from Alabama. That guy's a winner to me. He's a great wide receiver. I think he will translate in the NFL, and I love his nickname, right? The Slim Reaper. I love that. I'd almost get that on a jersey for him if he was an Eagle. the guy has that ticker too. He doesn't have to be coached. You can do all the great things in college that you can. When you come to the pros, you still have to get coached because it's the NFL now, okay? So he has to be coached well here. No matter who they get in that 6th pick, that player has to be coached up to be an NFL player, to translate the talent from the collegiate level to the NFL level. So that has to be better, certainly than it's been in how many years here, right? Particularly at the wide receiver position, for God's sakes. But anyhow, I hope it's better. I really do. But like I said, I mean, I would not be opposed. Kind of to wrap this up in a little bow. I know I've went 55 minutes. I would not be opposed to a defensive-minded head coach. I almost would welcome the change. And that is coming off the Super Bowl just a few years ago. I still would welcome the change. Sometimes change is good. And sometimes you make a change for the better. And if that's the direction they go in, and there are some pretty good defensive-minded coaches out there, right? Saleh and company. If they get one of those guys, I wouldn't be opposed to it, as long as they get the right offensive coordinator with them, right? That goes hand in hand. So I would hope for that. And if they get another offensive guy, I would hope that they get the right defensive coordinator in here, because that goes hand in hand. It has to be better. And it's up to the powers that be to make it better. I am concerned about the powers that be. But they have to hit on who they get, and they have to allow that coach to make his moves for his staff. And the player personnel has to come from them. It has to. That's the only way it's going to work. It's the only way that things are going to get better here. Or we're going to be stuck in the hamster wheel for many years. And we don't want that. Maybe some other fans want that from us, but we don't want that here in Eagles Nation. Anyhow, I went on for almost an hour. There was a lot to discuss. In conclusion, it's going to be an interesting offseason here. More drama. There's always drama in Philly, isn't there? We just can't get away from it, right? So there's more drama. At the end of the day, I do hope they make the right decision and decisions for the coaching staff, for the draft, and turn this thing around. Turn this thing around. As an Eagles fan, that's all I can hope for. In conclusion, for the Festive Four, I know we went a few weeks without it, but Festive finished off 3-1 the last week. We did a Festive Four, and the overall record for Festive is 28-12. That's not bad. I know we missed some weeks. I apologize. Stuff happens. It got into the holidays, got into stuff, and it is what it is. My apologies. I ended the season the way the Eagles did, with a whimper. But I hope I made up for it in this video. I know I had a lot to say, but I'm hoping for the best. I mean, we'll see. I'm worried about Howie. I'm worried about Jeffrey, but I'm hoping they make the right move at the coach and the coaching staff and the players in the draft and just get this thing better. Quarterback position as well. It has to be better. So let's go, Birds, as always. Let's see what they do. And I'll probably have another video here at some point after they make the coaching hire, maybe before the draft, and we'll see. But anyhow, thanks for watching. You all stay safe out there. Happy 2021. It's a new year, and we'll see what 2021 brings. And already been some interesting developments in 2021 so far. Yeah, 2020 is still lingering, huh? But anyhow, you all stay safe out there. Mask up when you go out. And enjoy the rest of the playoffs, even though our Birds aren't in it. But let's hope for good playoffs the rest of the way. And you all take care. All right.